battle. Back in the village, Vezin briefly considers running away, but then he remembers all the people he promised to protect, and he can't bring himself to abandon them. So he tells Flynn to go check on Jose and Alha, making sure the guerrillas don't reach them, while he stays behind to hold the line and fight. Eventually, the guerrillas break through the gate, forcing Vezin and the other soldiers to prepare for battle. At first, Vezin has no trouble overpowering the ordinary guerrillas, but now guardian bearers have joined their ranks, making the fight much harder for him. Slowly making his way onto the battlefield, Alha limps forward. Even in his current condition, he can't just stand by as the village faces this attack. When the other soldiers notice Alha has arrived, a wave of relief washes over them. With another guardian bearer joining the fight, they might actually have a chance now. As soon as Alha joins the fight, he manages to slash one of the gorillas clean in half with his sword, but because of his weakened state, he tires out almost immediately. When he goes up against one of the gorilla guardian bearers, his blade fails to cut through its neck, and the force of the clash sends him crashing to the ground. Just as the gorilla moves in to deliver the final blow to Alha, Jose leaps in at the last moment, intercepting the attack with her shield. She forces the gorilla back, but the impact sends waves of pain through her still healing body. She lets her shield fall and grips her spear tightly, ready to face the gorilla head-on. Though she lacks the raw strength of Alha or Vezin, her speed more than makes up for it. The gorilla can't even follow her movements. Before the beast knows what's happening, Jose launches herself into the air and cuts its head with a single. Her triumph sends a surge of confidence through the soldiers, reigniting their determination as they charge back into battle. With Vezin, Alha, and Jose fighting side by side, they finally overpower the remaining gorilla guardian bearers. Vezin gazes at Jose with pride, surprised by how skilled a fighter she has become. However, one of the wounded gorillas warns him that even a few additional guardian bearers won't be enough to protect the village. Their king is just beyond the gates. A flicker of concern crosses Vezin's mind, and oddly, the remaining gorillas surrounding the village have stopped attacking, though they don't seem to be withdrawing either. Curious, Vezin moves to the door to get a better view, and to his astonishment, he spots Kai tearing through the gorillas with nothing but his bare hands. Vezin has no clue how Kai is pulling this off, but it's clear he's more than able to deal with the gorillas outside. So Vezin calls out to Kai and tosses him his spike club, giving him a proper weapon to wield. Kai grabs the club mid-air and, with it in hand, starts tearing through the entire gorilla army. Manso and the others witness everything happening, completely stunned by what they're seeing. They always knew Kai was strong, but this kind of power is on par with a true guardian bearer. Vezin isn't entirely sure what's behind Kai's incredible strength, but with him battling alongside them, victory over the gorillas seems certain. Within just a few minutes, Kai has already wiped out the majority of the gorillas, showing no signs of stopping. Realizing they're completely outmatched, the king and the remaining gorillas turn and retreat into the forest. With their enemies gone, the battle is officially won, and the soldiers erupt into cheers of celebration. Now that the battle has ended, Alha approaches Akui and inquires about her thoughts on the fight. Akui commends Alha's combat abilities, remarking that it's because of him the village was protected. Though Alha played a significant role, Alha understands the real hero was Kai, the very boy he once dismissed as nothing more than a commoner. Since everyone witnessed Kai wielding his divine crest during the battle, he decides to conceal his power by claiming he merely painted the crest on, pretending to scrub it away. Right at that moment, Vezin approaches Kai and questions him about Nada's whereabouts, only for Kai to respond with unfortunate news. He explains that while he and Nada were breaking the curse in Ida village, 3 guardian bearer gorillas ambushed them. Kai leaves out the detail of Nada's betrayal, but the crucial fact remains: Nada lost his life to one of the gorillas, and Kai couldn't do anything to prevent it. Vezin is surprised to hear this since he knows Nada was as strong as a guardian bearer, so he wonders how he could have lost. Kai then tells him that one of the apes mentioned the attack on the village, and as soon as he learned of it, he rushed over as soon as he could to help. But as a result, he never got to give Nada a proper burial. Vezin says he understands, and he will send a small team to find Nada's body so they can take care of it. At that moment, Elsa's younger sister approaches Kai and asks if he's seen her anywhere. Kai is surprised. He hadn't realized Elsa was missing, as the last time he spotted her was during the evacuation to the castle. Just then, Manso steps forward and tells that when Gandalf retreated during the attack, he seized Elsa and took her away in his carriage. But with everyone occupied fighting off the gorillas, no one had been able to pursue him. As soon as Kai hears this, he takes off running in the direction Gandalf went because he has to rescue Elsa from him. But Manso wonders how Kai intends to catch up to a carriage that has such a huge head start. Meanwhile, inside Gandalf's carriage, he gazes out the window to assess whether the coast is clear. His assistant reassures him, explaining that this region isn't known for guerrilla activity, so there's no cause for concern. Gandalf then asks about the estimated time to reach the capital, to which the assistant responds that they still have a journey of 1,000 kilometers ahead. Covering that distance will take some time, so Gandalf decides to amuse himself by playing with Elsa to pass the hours. However, before he can act on his intentions, a chilling presence suddenly scares him. Sensing something rapidly closing in on the carriage, he activates his guardian bearer abilities to sharpen his sight, only to spot Kai charging toward him at full speed. Gandalf quickly snatches a bow and arrow, aiming to take Kai down before he gets within striking distance, but Elsa won't allow it. She pushes him, throwing off his shot. Gandalf is enraged, so he takes out his sword to teach Elsa a lesson. But a moment later, the carriage begins to shake because the horses can feel Kai's pressure, and it's scaring them. The driver eventually loses control, and the whole carriage crashes after hitting a rock. The impact sends Gandalf tumbling to the ground as the horses escape escape in panic, the driver chasing after them. Kai rushes to the carriage, desperate to check on Elsa, only to be met with a horrifying sight. She's been stabbed by Gandalf, gently lifting her out. He tries to heal her wounds with his magic, but the damage is far too severe for his powers to take effect. Meanwhile, Gandalf suffers several broken bones from the crash, but with his guardian bearer power, he's able to heal himself and stand back up. But now he has to deal with Kai. Kai approaches Gandalf and angrily asks if he was the one responsible for stabbing Elsa. Sensing that he's no match for Kai, Gandalf immediately begins making excuses, insisting that the blame isn't his. In fact, he claims that Kai himself is the reason Elsa got hurt. At first, Kai refuses to believe him, convinced it's just another lie. But then Gandalf elaborates, saying that Kai's overwhelming energy frightened the horses, making the carriage overturn, and in the chaos, he unintentionally stabbed Elsa. For a moment, Kai's rage wavers as he begins to question whether he truly is at fault. But then he recalls that Gandalf was the one who kidnapped Elsa, so the blame still falls on him. Desperate, Gandalf urges Kai to take a breath, warning him that assaulting an inspector won't go unpunished. But Kai couldn't care less about Gandalf's rank or authority. Without hesitation, he seizes him by the throat and throws him violently to the floor. Gandalf starts defending himself, claiming he did nothing wrong after all. It's only natural for the strong to dominate the weak, and someone like Kai, a mere commoner, should never have wielded such power in the first place. But his words only make things worse. Fed up with Gandalf's excuses, Kai reaches into his chest and tears out his godstone. Though he's finally taken revenge for what Gandalf did to Elsa, the victory feels hollow because he still has no idea how to save her. Just then he notices that he can save her by giving her Gandalf's godstone to consume. Since it came from a guardian bearer, it should to provide her with sufficient energy to recover. Yet, the moment Elsa swallows it, something horribly unexpected happens. Her body starts convulsing in pain. Kai doesn't understand what happens, and his limited knowledge about guardian bearers leaves him clueless about what's really going on. Right now, his only hope is to get Elsa to Porek and find out if he can do anything to help. But as Kai races through the forest, several gorillas observe him from the shadows. Eventually, he reaches Porek and explains everything, desperate to understand what's happening to Elsa. Porek's response is clear. Giving her Gandalf's godstone was a terrible mistake. It's true that consuming a godstone can aid in healing, but if the godstone comes from the same species, it can cause dangerous poisoning if proper measures aren't followed. In the worst-case scenario, Elsa could die from the toxin, but there's still hope to save her. Porek immediately starts getting things ready to make Elsa puke the godstone. Meanwhile, Kai steps out of the tent to give Porek room to work, but as soon as he's outside, he notices 3 gorillas heading his way and instinctively prepares to defend himself. Kai demands to know if they've come to assault his village, but to his astonishment, the gorillas all drop to their knees in reverence. Recognizing the sacred crest of the god Kani, they humbly request that he accompany them back to their territory. After several hours, Porek manages to make Elsa expel most of Gandalf's godstone and administer some Urak antidote. With nothing more they can do, they can only wait and hope she pulls through. Porek steps outside to update Kai on Elsa's condition, but as he exits the tent, he's stunned to see several gorillas kneeling at Kai's feet. Confused, he asks Kai what's going on, but Kai is just as surprised. One of the gorillas, who introduces himself as Torud, speaks up and again begs Kai to accept their request, though Kai still has no idea what he's referring to. Porek urges Torud to clarify the situation, so Torud explains that their land has been corrupted by an evil god, and from Porek's reaction, Kai can see this is no small matter. Torud continues, detailing how the corruption has spread through both the land and water, leaving the gorillas with no food. Now, they have no choice but to wait helplessly for their end. The one behind all this ruin, he says, is the malevolent god Diabo. The moment Kai hears that name, the arbitration god erupts in his mind, screaming at him to annihilate Diabo no matter what. The force of it is so intense that Kai drops to his knees briefly. Once he regains his composure, he turns to the gorillas and demands to know why they believe they have any right to ask for his help. Just moments ago, they were attacking his village and came close to killing everyone he holds dear. Yet now they're asking him for help. One of Torud's subordinates grows frustrated and yells at Kai, pointing out that he's killed many of their own as well, and warns that if he refuses to assist them, the gorillas will simply strike Lag village again. But trying to bargain with threats against Kai's home backfires. Furious, Kai warns them that if any of the gorillas dare to attack his village again, he'll personally wipe out every last one of them. Torud starts to panic and quickly commands his underling to apologize at once, hoping to calm Kai's fury, but instead of begging for forgiveness, the subordinate explains that the gorillas only attacked Lag out of desperation. With their land poisoned and no longer able to sustain them, they had no choice but to seek a new home fast. Still, Kai remains unmoved by their plight, especially after their actions. He coldly orders them to leave before turning away and goes back into the tent. Porek walks into the tent and finds Kai standing beside Elsa. He informs him that they've done everything they can to treat her, but whether she lives or dies now depends on the strength of her life force. Porek then asks if Kai is willing to at least consider the gorilla's plea, but Kai reminds him that Elsa wouldn't be in this condition if the gorillas hadn't attacked their village. As far as he's concerned, he has no intention of lifting a finger to help. Porek acknowledges Kai's anger, but he reminds him that the gorilla's plea was made under the ancient laws, and as the new arbitration god, Kai doesn't have the luxury of dismissing them outright. He goes by many titles: the god god of Kani, the arbitration god, and others, yet no matter what name he's called, every race reveres him in the same way. That's precisely why the arbitration god must remain neutral, standing above tribal conflicts to safeguard all and preserve the world's balance. Kai feels like that's an overwhelming burden for just one person, almost as if Porek is expecting him to single-handedly save the entire world, and in a way, that's exactly what Porek is saying. After all, Kai now wields the power of the arbitration god, a being whose strength far surpasses that of the scattered land gods dotting the continent. With that power comes an inescapable duty. The arbitration god's fate is to shield the world itself. Kai has a lot on his mind, so he steps outside to clear his head. He's surprised to find the gorillas still waiting for him, but with nothing to say to them, he quietly walks past. He makes his way down into the valley and sits beside the valley god's gravestone, still struggling to make sense of everything. The idea that he's now expected to save the world feels unreal, and as he reflects on the power he's inherited, he can't help but wonder, if the valley god's power is truly so great, then why was it entrusted to someone like him? Kai pleads with the valley god for answers, but there's only silence. Frustrated, he lashes out by channeling his powers at the two flowers growing at the base of the gravestone. Before he can do any harm, Aru steps in and stops him, not wanting the innocent flowers to be hurt for no reason. Realizing he let his emotions get the better of him, Kai pulls back and quietly walks away, heading out of the valley. Aru is left standing there confused. She's never seen Kai behave like that before. Meanwhile, at the valley's peak, Porek is chatting amicably with the gorillas, expressing his admiration for how well they speak the human language. Just then, Kai returns and walks right past the group without acknowledging them, heading straight to Porek to say that he's going back to his village. Torud's subordinate grows irritated and demands to know if that means Kai is rejecting their request. But Kai tells him that he's still thinking it over. He hasn't made up his mind about whether to help the gorillas, but right now, he needs to return to the village. People will start to worry if he's gone much longer. In her current condition, he can't bring Elsa back with him, so he asks Porek to look after her while he's away. Kai then dashes off, and once he's gone, Torud turns to Porek and asks whether he really believes Kai will agree to help them. Porek admits he can't be sure what Kai will decide, but he can confidently say one thing: Kai isn't the type to run. Kai eventually returns to the village, and everyone is relieved to see that he's safe. They immediately ask him what happened, but Kai lies, saying he wasn't able to find Gandalf. He can't exactly admit that he killed the inspector or that he had Elsa consume his godstone, so he lets everyone believe that Gandalf got away and took Elsa with him. Manso sympathizes with Kai, understanding how strong his bond with Elsa was, so he suggests that Kai take some time to rest. However, before stepping away, Kai insists that he must talk to Vezin first. Shortly after, Kai is escorted to Vezin's room, where he warns that the gorillas are probably going to strike again soon. This news leaves everyone surprised, as they had believed the apes wouldn't return. But if there's even a possibility of another attack, they'll have to get ready for war. Kai has said all he needs to say, so it's time for him to leave. But just as he's about to go, Vezin stops him, saying how impressed he was with Kai's actions in the last fight. He adds that he's excited to see what Kai will achieve next. Once Kai steps outside, he's confronted by Lilisa, Elsa's sister, who demands to know where Elsa is. Kai had promised to return with her, but now he can't bring himself to tell the truth about what actually happened. Left with no choice, he allows Lilisa to believe that Elsa is dead, and she holds him responsible for everything. Jose comes up to Kai and tells him that everyone knows that lives are lost in a battle, but lately she's starting to wonder if the land gods may be getting them into fights to weed out the weak. She then looks over to the pile of gorillas' corpses being harvested for their godstones, and she can't help but wonder if the gorillas had people they cared about as well. At that moment, Alha appears and questions Kai if he's the one responsible for the dead gorillas nearby. He admits that Kai is far more capable than he originally assumed, but he's irritated that Kai doesn't seem proud of what he's done. Alha burns with envy over the praise Kai has received, convinced he could have achieved the same feat if not for the curse. In his mind, had he been the one to cut down the gorillas, news of his victory might have reached the kingdom and helped elevate the Moloch family's reputation. He takes his sword and starts stabbing a gorilla corpse in frustration. But even if it's an gorilla, desecration of a corpse is heavily frowned upon, so Kai grabs Alha's arm to get him to stop. However, in a fit of rage, Alha pushes Kai to the ground and points his sword at him, saying he shouldn't get carried away because Kai won't outshine him forever. Kai tells him he doesn't care about anything of it, because as things are, more people are going to die if there's another battle. He'll be much happier if he could stop the gorillas from attacking altogether. Alha explains to him that such a thing could never happen, as humans and demi-humans have been fighting for generations, and nothing will ever change that. Yet, Kai isn't willing to accept that fate, so he's reached a decision. He knows exactly what must be done. Returning to Vezin's office, he requests permission to investigate the gorilla territory. Vezin, however, is growing suspicious. It's unusual for Kai to want to head out on another mission so soon after returning, but even if Kai is keeping something from him, Vezin still trusts him enough to handle himself in the field. Once he's finished making his preparations, Kai is all set to leave, but before he goes, Manso hands him a new spear. Jose has a gift for him as well, and she insists that Kai take her knife along with him. Kai feels he doesn't deserve something so valuable, but Jose tells him to just take it. She wants him to consider it a good luck charm, and if he ever finds himself in danger, she urges him to use it without right away. Kai thanks her for her kindness, but as he walks away from the village, he can't help but wonder if he'll ever return. Kai isn't certain whether he can actually defeat the evil god, but he's already made up his mind. He's going to move forward and give it everything he's got. Meanwhile, out in the desert, a few Korors are burying Gandalf's body, making sure no one discovers what Kai did. Back in the Korra village, Kai tells the gorillas that he's decided to accept their request. The gorillas are surprised, barely able to believe it, but Kai assures them he means every word. However, he's only going to fulfill their request if they can promise they won't attack the village while he's gone. The gorillas swear that they won't try to invade his village anymore, so Kai is about to follow them so they can lead him to the ape land. However, before he leaves, Horik reminds him that there is still a lot of hatred between the gorillas and the humans, so if he travels into ape territory as he is now, he might encounter some trouble. To solve this problem, he hands Kai some traditional Korra's attire. As long as he's dressed like this, any gorilla who spots him will mistake him for one of their own. With that settled, Kai makes his way to Elsa's tent to see her one final time before leaving. He's aware she likely can't hear him, but he tells her anyway her sister is deeply worried about her, and since he'll be gone for a while, he hopes she'll have recovered by the time he comes back. As Kai steps out of the tent, he's surprised to see the Korors holding a Durakan's axe. Horik explains that they took it after Kai defeated a Durakan, thinking it might come in handy if Kai runs into trouble in gorilla territory. The axe is absurdly oversized, but he's able to swing it with ease, so he decides to take it with him. With that, Kai and the others set off on their journey to the land of the gorillas. Meanwhile, in the capital of the human kingdom, a gathering of influential nobles are having lunch when news arrives that the gorillas are attacking the village of Lag. Yet, they remain utterly indifferent, as Lag is nothing more than a distant, insignificant settlement. Even if it were to be wiped out completely, their comfortable lives wouldn't be impacted in the slightest. Truth be told, the very reason they can live in such peace and luxury is because they've long allowed small, remote villages like Lag to bear the brunt of the battles against the demi-humans, and they have no intention of changing that anytime soon. Meanwhile, Kai and his group finally arrive in the gorillas' homeland, and the scene is just as grim as they mentioned. A dense black fog blankets the entire region. As they move through the ruins of the gorilla settlements, Kai notices numerous lifeless bodies scattered nearby. The gorillas clarify that these fallen were slain by Diabo, but since Kai still knows very little about this malevolent deity, he turns to Porek, seeking some answers. Porek himself has never encountered Diabo directly, but he's familiar with the legend, so he explains to Kai that Diabo is a deity who has emerged multiple times throughout history, each time spreading chaos and destruction. The last time Diabo appeared, it was the former arbitration god who managed to defeat him, a story that has been handed down through generations. Because of the curse Diabo has cast upon this land, nothing can grow here anymore. Not even the plants. The rivers, too, have suffered, with every single fish dying as a result. Torrid guides Kai to an enormous tree at the heart of the gorilla's village, informing him that Abridor, the village chief, awaits him inside. Kai, uncertain of what lies ahead, proceeds to meet with the chief. Kai is taken inside and introduced to Abridor, who's a bit surprised that the new god of arbitration is so small, though he doesn't make a big deal of it. While Kai remains wary about facing the leader of the gorillas, Abridor clarifies that he's not their king. With many questions racing through his mind, Kai asks Abridor to explain what happened to the land, stating that his decision to help will depend on the answer he gets. Abridor understands, so he informs Kai that Diabo was summoned by the gorilla's darkness, though Kai has no clue what that means. Kai asks Abridor to explain this darkness, so Abridor elaborates that their king had lost his mind, suddenly drowning himself in drink and pleasure while utterly neglecting his royal duties. Because of this, the people suffered immensely, and their resentment festered until it reached their very core. Hearing this, Kai is reminded of what Nada told him before his death, that the human nation is also in decline due to the king's careless and indulgent ways. Whether it's the gorillas or the humans, once a leader becomes corrupt, the entire nation is destined to crumble. Abridor continues his explanation, telling Kai that the former king was eventually overthrown in a struggle for power. One of his sons, Shender, then set out for the northern lands in search of a new land god. In his quest, Shender went on a rampage through the northern regions until he finally succeeded in stealing a land god from one of the local inhabitants. However, Shender's murderous rampage made him countless enemies, and the enraged locals retaliated by placing numerous curses on his newly acquired god. The overwhelming number of curses shattered the godstone and allowed dark energy to corrupt his body, transforming him into Diabo. Driven mad by the malevolence, Shender lost all sense of self and became a monster. Upon returning home, the first thing he did was devour his own father and siblings alive. Sadly, Shender became so powerful that no one was able to stop him, and to this day, he remains on the loose. As long as he's free, the land of the gorillas will keep deteriorating, and Abridor's protective power will continue to fade even further. Desperate, Abridor crawls over to Kai and begs for his help, warning that if things keep going like this, their gods may abandon them completely, leaving them as nothing more than mindless beasts. Kai can see that the gorillas are truly in a difficult situation, so he feels sympathy for them. The valley god begins shouting at him, urging him to go and defeat the Diabo. Kai agrees to take on the task and makes a firm promise that he will be the one to kill the Diabo. A few minutes later, the gorillas start guiding Kai toward the last known location of Diabo, the Gorilla King's castle. They finally reach the castle, but before they can enter, a group of cloaked gorillas suddenly appears and encircles them. The cloaked gorillas start arguing with Torrid in their own language. Since Kai doesn't understand what they're saying, he's informed that these cloaked gorillas plan to kill Shender themselves and don't want Kai taking their glory. Kai is stunned that the gorillas are actually turning on each other in such a critical moment, but the cloaked ones insist they don't need his help. Lady Zaina is more than capable of defeating Diabo by herself. Torod is caught off guard by the mention of Xena, surprised to learn she's back. When Kai asks who she is, he doesn't get a reply because a deep rumble echoes from within the castle, and everyone outside can sense the overwhelming power Diabo now possesses. Kai knows he can't waste another second. He charges straight toward the castle entrance, and when a cloaked gorilla tries to block him, he hurls him into the wall without hesitation. The rest follow him inside, and soon they reach a wide chamber within the castle. There, they're met with a grim sight.